Men are making less money than we did in 1979, adjusted for inflation. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Just shows you Biden economics, Reaganomics, Clinton. Oh my goodness. Women are making more. All right. So I was just reading this article on Zero Hedge from Mish Talk. I actually like that guy. Mish, I don't know his first name or whatever, but it drives me up the wall. All right. How is he measuring inflation? Using, of course, CPI. All right, so and again, why would you use CPI? I don't know. It's just a go-to for people who want to promote negativity. It's nuts. But he did the courtesy of measuring wages for men. This is a median hourly wage, by the way, or weekly wage. And if you measure against personal consumption expenditures, PCE, men are actually making more money adjusted for inflation if you measure as compared to PCE as opposed to CPI. But even, let's just go back to CPI. All right. So basically CPI, remember, OER, owner's equivalent rent. And housing is 45% relative to CPI, of which owner's equivalent rent is something like 80% of that. And then you got to actually rent a house in of itself is another like 9% or something like that. So basically, of the housing cost, 80% of something like that is relative to renting a home in some regard, either renting it to yourself or renting it just outright, like you're a renter. Okay, well that doesn't make any sense because I don't rent, you most likely don't rent, so why would I need to look at renting as part of my CPI? It doesn't make any sense, it's stupid. Well, I got a mortgage, your mortgage is probably fixed, and as such it doesn't change on an annual basis anyway. And then you got transportation costs as the second largest perspective of CPI. Transportation costs, which is 18% of the entirety of CPI, that revolves around what? The bulk of transportation costs is buying or leasing a new car every year, or new to you car every year. All my cars are paid for. I don't buy or lease a new car every year. So essentially, we can just write off well above 50% of CPI just right there. Now, that doesn't mean there's no inflation, but again, CPI is not a good barometer of inflation, especially when it comes to your wages. All right, either way, and then you measure it relative to personal consumption expenditures, PCE, and men have actually increased their wages, not much, but by a percentage point each and every year. We'll take it. So we're basically going up relative to inflation, as opposed to going down. All right, now women have gone up. Well, that would make sense because, and this is going back to 1979. In 1979, there are less women in the workforce. The women who were going to the workforce were just starting out, again, college educated and whatnot. And as women got more educated and we have more anti-male sentiment taking over, women are being put more and more in leadership positions. That's just a fact, man. There's an affirmative action for women. We all know that. I know that. You know that. That doesn't mean some women aren't qualified to do the job. Of course, there are many qualified ladies, but we know for a fact there's been a preference towards women. That's just a fact. All right. So anyway, but with that said, women were held down in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. That's no debate. I don't think any denying that. But we've seen a rapid increase in women's wages relative to 1979. Partly because women got more educated, they got more leadership roles, and other partly because of affirmative action for sure. Did you see how they just put Kelly Loeffler, the old senator from Georgia, on some board of some big tech, fintech company, financial tech company or something like that? Well, why would Kelly Loeffler be put on the board? In fact, why would Kelly Loeffler even be the senator from Georgia appointed by Brian Kemp? Why? Oh, because her husband owns the New York Stock Exchange. So anyway, so they need women on the board of directors. They hire safe bets who are going to do the bidding of corporate and Wall Street. And they say, look, we have more diversity on the board of directors. And Kelly Loeffler will get paid accordingly. The whole thing's just a scam, without question. That's not saying, there's not lots of men who are board of directors who shouldn't be. I mean, look at Hunter Biden. Look at that crazy Elizabeth Holmes lady with her board of directors, a bunch of political hacks, freaking all these guys. It's just the whole thing's nuts. Anyway, all right, so now we can be negative on this and say, oh my goodness, men are losing relative to CPI. Okay. Then you'll hear part two, yeah, and I can't even afford to buy a house. You can't even afford a house today relative to what we could do in 1970s. Oh my goodness. Such a stupid art. I hear that all the time. It freaking drives me insane because it's dumb. It's dumb. The average size house in the 1970s was 1,600 square feet. My wife lived in a house that had 1,800 square feet, and there were 11 of them. 11. She and 2 of her sisters shared the same room. All right. So the average family size was probably, what, 5 back then, something like that? I don't know off the top of my head, but it's certainly bigger than it is now. The average family size is a hell of a lot lower than it is today than it was in the 1970s. The average house size now is about 2,300 square foot, all right, which is down from 2,500 square foot just a couple years ago. So essentially, the square footage of a home has gone up, I don't know, 50, 70%. Yet the family size who occupies that home has gone down 50, 70%, something like that. So the idea that you can't afford a home like you could in the past is so flippin' stupid. It's so dumb. I hate that. Yeah, you can say you can't afford a home today, that's fine, but don't compare it to the past as if homes were just flying off the shelf back then, anyone could afford it. Do you know that the average size home in the 1930s and 20s was like 900 square foot? Bet you didn't know that. And do you know that only 40 to 45% of the population even owned a home back in the 1940s? All the way up until basically after World War II. That was when we started having 30-year mortgages, I think. But certainly when we started having the GI or the VA loans and things of that nature, where veterans come back from the work to buy a house. And the mass migration to the suburbs. I bet you didn't know that, did you? So the idea, again, kind of like the whole stupid pension thing, it was so much better back in the day when I had a pension. So freaking dumb, dude. It's so dumb. Oh, we got some deers running through the... Oh, man, let's see if I can't show you guys this. Maybe you can see those deers galloping. Look at the galloping deer. Can y'all see that? Galloping all the country way. Look at those galloping big old squirrels. Hi, big old squirrels. Uh-oh. They're all going over the road. Uh-oh. Yikes. Watch out, boys and ladies. Oh, boy. They're all... Look at that. Go. Hurry up, buddy. Go. Oh, boy. There's a dead deer on the side here the other day. Small one, too. What a baby deer. Oh, that guy's limping. Hurry up. Go over. He's like sitting on the side. Go. There you go. Oh, boy. He's limping. Oh, man. He can't keep up with his crew. It breaks my heart. Ugh. Yeah. He finally went across the street, but he couldn't keep up. Yeah, he'll be not long for this world, I'm sure. That just kills me. Yeah. We got turtles in this area here, too, and every now and again I'll see a dead turtle, and I just, I hate it. Every now and again I'll see a turtle trying to walk across the road. I'll try to grab him with a stick or something like that, scoot him on over. Ugh. Look, man, I'm a human being. I know it's nothing we can do about it, but we do say, man, humanity, why do we even have to drive? I mean, look, it is what it is, but still, when you see dead animals, it breaks your heart. One time I was mowing my yard. This is when we lived in Dayton, Virginia. I'll never forget this. We had this little berm. I'm mowing the berm, and all of a sudden this like scruff of hair comes up. I'm like, what the hell? I looked down, I scalped this little baby rabbit. It's like, oh. And he wasn't dead, but he was pain. I just freaking had to slam him. I was like, oh man, that killed me. And at least that deer didn't get hit. Anyway, going back to what I was saying. So if you want to be negative, that's fine. That's fine. So I'm reading this guy's, talk on men aren't keeping up, women are. And then I go back to the old household median income. So the median family income and median household income in the United States now is something like $80,000. All right. This is the whole point. The whole point, and I don't get why people don't get this, isn't that men are making bank or men are losing and women are making bank. The whole point is that you should have not two incomes necessarily, but a household should be a husband and a wife. And if you have a breadwinner and a wife staying at home, or 2 breadwinners, ideally it'd be a husband making the money, the wife staying home, you're going to have more stability. You're going to have more income. You're going to have less expenses. either because your wife is staying home raising the kids, so you don't have to pay for childcare, or you have two incomes. Two incomes is better than one. So you have more money. Now, some of that money will go for childcare and stuff like that, which is a cost of doing business. You have to figure out if that's worth it or not. Some of the money your wife is making is going to pay for taxes. You know, after childcare and taxes, how much you really bring home. But the point should always be, we need to promote marriage. Husband and wife, man and woman. Marriage needs to be promoted because a two-parent household has more income, is more stable, and can afford houses. A house is the primary source of wealth in the United States. Owning a home. It's not a 401k, it's not your gold, it's not Bitcoin. It's owning a home. We should be encouraging people to get married, stay married, consolidate the resources, consolidate their housing costs, and have freaking kids, dude. And recognize that once you do have kids, you now have a responsibility. You have to sacrifice your own desires for your children. But we don't do that. We say, man, I want it now. I want it now. I want it for me. I got to live my best life. And my wife's holding me back. My kids are holding me back. I got to do this, that, and the other because I'm getting older. It's nuts. I don't get why we don't. So if we have a median household income, women's wages have gone up significantly relative to PCE. And they've gone up relative to CPI as well. That's a fact. Men's wages have gone down relative to CPI, but they've gone up a little bit relative to PCE. That's real wages, by the way. Housing costs have gone up. That's a fact. And they're pretty expensive now. Why? There's a supply shortage of homes. This is just a fact. Basically, a quarter of the cost of a new home is for regulatory costs, by the way. To keep up with what Governor Newsom wants to do in California. What Sniffy Joe wants you to do from Washington, D.C. So a house that costs $400,000, $100,000 of that is attributed to regulatory costs. So that's your government at work for you there, dude. When the government gets involved, things go more expensive. And I talk about this in my book, Relax and Retire, too, by the way. Which you should get, because I show you. I use an example of Detroit from the BLS data from 1936, I think. They interviewed 100 people who worked for Ford. 66 of the people had no home. They lived in a rent, apartment, or rented a house or a flat. 33% of them were the homeowners. Interestingly enough, more of the homeowners didn't have running water relative to the renters. So I actually showed you that. More of the homeowners had a privy, whereas less of the renters did. A privy is an outhouse. Anyway, I'm just sick of the whole thing like, it's so much worse now. Again, you need an attitude of gratitude. We got more food in our... Did you know, by the way, just as an FYI, all you anti-GMO people, and I'm not necessarily keen on GMOs, I do not believe GMOs per se are problematic. I think the soil around the genetically modified organism is, when it gets sprayed with all that crap that the GMO can tolerate, gets polluted, 100%. So you take the pesticides, the herbicides, the GMO can be tolerating that and still grow. And the corn you can eat, I'm not at all convinced that's bad for you, necessarily. But I think when you do that mass, you're hurting the soil around it as such, essentially. I can't prove that. I think there's definitely some runoff that gets in the water supply. All the fluoride in the water supply. None of this is good, dude. None of this is good. But be that as may, I'd rather have GMO food and get freaking 3 hots on a cot than like we used to have, which no GMO food, and spend a hell of a lot of money of our resources on providing food for ourselves. If you look at CPI in the old days, which I've done, and I talk about in my book, food was a significant portion of personal consumption expenditures. All right, food was a third of people's total expenditures. Apparel was another big one as well. All right, now we've beaten back the cost of food. We all have food now, so food has jumped down quite a bit to about 14% now, whereas before it was more than a third. You know, it's 50, 60, 70 years ago. So because food is abundant, A, we're fat, and B, we're able to spend on other things because we don't have to cost so much for food. Apparel, because we killed all the local shops in North Carolina, whatnot, textile firms, we import all that from overseas, cheap Chinese labor, Vietnamese labor, and whatnot. It doesn't mean that's what's happening now. So we don't pay nearly as much for apparel. I mean, I don't even know how much I pay for this t-shirt. T-shirt's 3 years old, if not even more. As you get older, you don't buy so many t-shirts. You're like, it works fine. Tennis shoes I get from Costco. These are Asics, $30 at Costco for Asics. I got last year. These shorts I'm wearing right now, Walmart, $8. My grungies I got on them, and my socks, either Walmart or Costco, cheap. So my outfit here, which includes tennis shoes, Asics, socks, grungies, shorts, and a t-shirt, probably costs all $30. And the bulk of that was for the tennis shoes. So we don't spend anything on apparel like we used to. Now, so what do we do now? We spend more on entertainment. We spend more on services, healthcare, for sure, because the government gets more involved, the more costly it becomes. Anyway, so you can gripe and say, it's just not the way it used to be. And you're just wrong, dude. Unless you grew up rich. I mean, maybe you grew up rich. You're like, man, I had everything growing up. I had a pool, I had air conditioning, I had color TV, I had ribeye. I didn't even know what the hell ribeye was until probably 10 years ago. I didn't know ribeye. Never had a brisket. I know brisket's not a huge, expensive cut of beef. We never had any of that. Never had any beef, dude. Do you know back in the old days, poor people used to farm, and poor people would eat, lobster and crabs, because lobsters and crabs were bottom dwellers. And farming was what poor people did. Now it's like the gentleman farmer, and lobster and crabs are luxuries. Isn't that crazy? Back in the old day, you lived on the island, like Peaks Island where I'm from. This is well before my time. Lobster was abundant, so you'd eat lobsters, no beef. But even in my day, we didn't have any beef. I mean, I don't remember hardly ever having a hamburger, ever. That's why I used to love hamburgers. I remember my dad would get pissed because every time we go out to eat, which wasn't very often, but every time, I'd take a hamburger. He said, you don't want to try something else, fish? I said, nope, hamburger. I said, man, that's all you eat? I said, I don't know, because we didn't have any growing up. Sometimes we had liver. That was about the only, I guess, liver was beef. The only beef we ever had. And while we're poor, we weren't freaking sickly. We still had food in our bellies. I just don't get all these people with the negativity. Oh my goodness, we're all getting beaten down. I literally don't understand that. Again, an attitude of gratitude. We need to end the Fed now. You know how stupid that would be? You know how what happened to your way of life if we ended the Fed and went to a gold standard? I hear this, I just laugh my kahoonies off. You have no clue what the hell you're talking about. You think you just go to a gold standard, it's gonna be all hunky-dory? Are you freaking nuts? And it's never gonna happen. And we'll do it to a CBDC before we ever go to a gold standard. And the reason it never happened because the federal government likes the idea of spending whatever they want to spend. Again, we got another $1 trillion deficit coming down. A deficit. That just adds to the current debt. When, where, how that will ever be paid off? Nobody knows. Are they going to monetize the debt? Nobody knows. Why would they even need to do that? They just create a bunch of ones and zeros on a computer and money just voila, it just shows up. Yeah, again, as I always say, at some point they'll stop. It's not inevitable. People have been saying the currency is going to collapse for freaking decades. I get so sick of that crap. I'm just sick of negativity, man. Too many negative delis out there, especially on YouTube. Inflation is, everything's collapsing. There is a crisis to come. A crisis of not enough younger people to do the jobs that you need done. And as such, you're going to have to get by with less. But man, enjoy it while you can. Enjoy it while you can. Enjoy the ride. It's a good time to be alive, man. Good time to retire. Good time to get out there and do what God put you on this earth to do. And it certainly isn't freaking sitting in a cube somewhere being a call center rep for Verizon. Ugh. Look, if that's what you got to do to put freaking food on the table, by all means, do that. But if you got enough money, I was talking to this guy just the other day. He's like, I'm ready. His wife's ready. I said, why are you, and we talked last year too, I said, why are you doing this? He goes, it's just scary. I said, I know it's scary. At some point, you just got to jump. Just got to jump in and see where it takes you. Love your thoughts. We'll see you.